For almost 4 decades, senior figures in the Church of England knew about John Smythe's barbaric abuse, but failed to stop it. That and a series of other scandals have led to calls for fundamental change. Campaigners and survivors gathered outside the annual meeting of the General Synod to urge the ruling body of the Church to vote to outsource handling of abuse allegations.
Please vote for Model 4.
We've been here, stood outside synods and giving talks to bishops and clergy and safeguarders since 2013. So we've been at it for a long time. The Church really needs to step up and do the right thing.
Synod members were asked to choose between option 4, transferring all safeguarding staff to an independent body, and option 3, transferring only national safeguarding staff to the new body, leaving others in each diocese in church employment.
I am clear that this must be a watershed moment for the Church to change its culture and its approach to safeguarding, as these failures can never happen again.
Marcia de Cordova is a Labour MP appointed by the King to ensure the Church is accountable to Parliament. She backed option 4.
It is essential that this Assembly shows both Parliament and the public that the Church is fully committed to change. If we want to honour victims and survivors, and if we want to work towards the kind of Church we want for the future, then that change must begin now.
But some bishops don't want to relinquish control of safeguarding.
It isn't poor structures that lead to bishops and others not putting victims and survivors at the centre of their focus when making decisions about safeguarding. No, it's culture. Most of all, a culture focused on the institution of the Church, a culture that is so subtle and so powerful that at times we don't even realise it's happening. Synod, I do believe that option 3 would give us the best chance of changing that culture, where safeguarding professionals embedded at the diocesan level are able to see and challenge the way things are done day by day, backed up, of course, by a rigorous external complaints process, scrutiny and audit.
A serving bishop has been among those accused of sexual assault and harassment in recent weeks. Several survivors had choice words for the bishops themselves.
I myself am a survivor of church-based abuse, so the whole of General Synod this session is very triggering and distressing. Any change is being hampered by a secretive, self-protecting and defensive House of Bishops, who have demonstrated time and again that they do not really want culture change. Victims and survivors do not feel like they are at the centre of their response. They feel ignored, sidelined, let down, not seen or heard.
When Synod members voted for option 3, allowing the bishops to retain some of their safeguarding capabilities, survivors said they felt crushed. It was a year ago that Professor Alexis Jay, chair of the Independent Inquiry into Child Sexual Abuse, recommended the Church outsource safeguarding. Today she shared the dismay of victims.
Well, I found it deeply disappointing, primarily, of course, for the many victims and survivors who had their hopes raised.
And does voting for this option potentially put people in jeopardy, make them less safe?
I can't say that it makes them less safe, but it was a huge opportunity missed to ensure that they were more safe, but most importantly, that trust and confidence in the Church could, in part, be restored by a vote in favour of option 4.
Several bishops seem pretty concerned about outsourcing safeguarding to an external body. Why do you think they might have those concerns?
Well, for different reasons, of course, and not necessarily all holding the same opinions on it. But primarily, I would say loss of control.
But then do you think the bishops are part of the problem here with the Church?
On the matter of safeguarding, Yes, and it was the opinion, of course, of my public inquiry in the report on the Anglicans. We believed and said in that report that the church provided an environment in which abusers could hide.
The fact that there have been some allegations against very senior figures within the church in recent weeks particularly, does that surprise you how far up the apparent rot goes?
No, it doesn't, because I have been in the position of being able to look across institutions and the failings of institutions when it comes to child sexual abuse, and the behaviours are very similar regardless of the kind of institution it is.
Given that you first reported to the church a year ago, suggesting a much more profound overhaul than they've actually voted for now, why do you think it is that the church is moving so slowly on this?
Well, if I were cynical about it, I would say it's because of a lack of commitment on the part of some to acknowledge the extent of the issues.
It took 40 years for the church to face up to the horrific abuse perpetrated by one in its midst. Survivors had hoped the momentum for wholesale reform was unstoppable. But an institution that's been in existence for nearly 500 years was never going to embrace change willingly.
So, exactly how waterproof is the bearskin fleece-lined